The fall of the Fianna Fáil slot, Fianna Bomacha, and Chuck the case, a grunch Kajamale, and Chuck the scandal.
Thank you. Let's concur. This is the first major piece of legislation to give effect to the Dáil's response to the housing crisis. As such, it has to be welcomed, even though its provisions will need to be monitored closely, as the overall purpose of this bill, which is to radically reduce the timescales involved in the planning of housing developments. The ultimate solution to the housing crisis is obvious, but difficult to achieve. A significant increase in the supply of housing units. A significant barrier is rolling out the massive increase in bills, is the unnecessary and bureaucratic delay caused by the current planning framework. A national emergency such as the housing crisis demands that we remove barriers that delay housing units being constructed. These are emergency measures, and I welcome that this is reflected in the time limit structure of many of these measures, with 2019 being the current expiration day. However, this sunset clause is subject to the extension by the Minister and Government of the day till 2021, should the need arise. However, this must be based on hard evidence, and the Fianna Fáil amendment enshrines that extension of these emergency measures is contingent on a comprehensive review of the policy and involvement of Parliament in its scrutiny. On residential tenancies, I believe that the Fianna Fáil amendments reflect a constructive yet impactful suite of measures designed to give greater certainty and protection to the tenants, while recognising that over 90% of Irish landlords only own 3 properties or less, and in many cases are involuntary landlords. These are not professional landlords, and in many cases are under massive pressures themselves. The most effective system of tenancies worldwide is one that involves larger, more institutional investment into the rental sector. We need to transition to that model in a controlled way in order to protect tenants and the vast majority of landlords, who are also fellow citizens who never intended to be in this position. Fianna Fáil is not going to demonise any sector or pitch one vulnerable group against the other. In that context, the reduction of the so-called Tyrrellstown Amendment from 20 units to 5 will offer secure occupancy for far more tenants, and this is only right. We have to remember that for the tenant, the property in question is their home for which they are paying for. The retention of the tenants' deposits where landlords are in receivership is also addressed by our amendment. Further amendments will be introduced by Fianna Fáil, which will further enable tenants to remain in their homes with confidence about their future developments in that sector. At the core of Fianna Fáil's amendments and our support for the bill lie in learning from the lessons of the past, and we will be providing practical, measurable yet impactful policies to aid this government tackle the housing crisis. I know that as a member of the Housing Committee that we will be dealing with much of this bill and their amendments next week, but I would like to take this opportunity, if the Minister allowed me, to get a bit technical on a few items that I would like to bring to his attention in advance of that, and assure you that this is done with a view to helping you and your department in providing answers and allow this bill to pass all stages next week, if that is possible. And just, I suppose, in relation to that, in relation to the pre-planning stage of it, and I read that there's a pre-planning stage with the board, which includes the local authority, which is a 9-week process. But when I read the bill and I read section 5, I clearly get out of that there is a separate pre-planning process that has to take place with the local authority before that takes place. And I'm not 100% sure on that, but the way I'm reading it, that's the way I'm reading it. And if that is the case, even though it clearly states here that there must be a meeting in 4 weeks, the outcome is not town-bound, and there's no end date on that process, if I'm reading it right. Because on section 6(5), there equally is a 4-week process, which maybe I am conflicting myself in what it is, but I don't think it is. And if that is the case, equally there is a problem, because if that process is there, and that first stage of public consultation with the local authority is involved in what I believe is the board and the local authority's planning process. In another section, in section 5(4), where the details of the pre-planning process with the local authorities has to be involved in, So I'm not too sure. I've been told it's only a 9-week process. I'm reading that there's 2 pre-planning processes, one with the local authority, one with the board and the local authority prior to going to submit your application to the board. That's just one point. In relation to the material contravention and the strategic housing development in relation to material contravention, equally I have reservations, and I think most people do have reservations in relation to this. Because we all know material contravention contravenes a local area plan or a county development plan, which has gone through a statutory process and a statutory public consultation process. But with this amendment in it, it's clearly saying that a development of 100 houses or more, that material contravenes a plan, can get planning permission. But that's what I'm reading into it at the moment, and I would have some reservations and concerns about that. And then in relation to the environmental impact statement or an appropriate assessment for a European site, we're after going through a 9-week process, and then we have to request additional information whether we need these reports done or these impact statements done. But yet each county development plan has done some appropriate assessments on both of these, the environmental and the Natura sites, within their documents. And I would have believed that it should have been clear from the start whether this is required or not required, and shouldn't have to wait until this section to find out whether it's needed. And then there's another 16-week process involved in that has to be gone through to get the solution to it. And then I suppose we've gone through all that 9-week process and we've come out of it, and I'm not too sure whether we have written confirmation that our application is suitable to move to submit it to the board directly for planning permission, because then there is a clause within that that says if the application is not up to standard, you've gone back to square one again. And I would hope that you haven't gone through the 9-week process and be told that you're going to go back to the start again, or you should be told at that stage. As I said in the speech there, that I'm sitting on the Housing Committee, and we did meet this morning, and if the debate is not finished tonight, maybe it will be finished tonight, that we will be given an extra 24 hours to submit amendments, as was requested this morning. I'm not too sure whether you've got that yet. If the Minister would facilitate us with that request, thank you, and thank you, Ceann Comhairle.
Thank you very much, Deputy Casey. Deputy Eamon Scanlon, you have 12 minutes.